the mighty and resilient Merrimack River, carving through the communities of our great region. My name is Linda Lorden, proud president of Merrimack County Savings Bank, and like the river that serves as our namesake, we're a constant yet ever-changing presence. Because to us, it's bigger than banking. It's about powering communities and putting people first. It's about knowing where you came from and where you're going. That's Merrimack style. Visit us at themerrimack.com.
Welcome to the Old Souls and Seekers podcast, a podcast that transcends the typical personal development journey. You're not new to this. You've read the books, attended the seminars, and perhaps even tried various coaching programs, yet something still feels amiss. Elon and Guy have over 2 decades of relentless searching and $1 million invested in their personal growth quest. Here's the revelation. You're not missing anything. You're not even behind. You might have just been searching in the wrong places. In each episode, we'll uncover the most effective, straightforward practices that have profoundly impacted our lives and the tens of thousands of our clients from all over the world. This is about real, sustainable results for those dedicated to their personal and spiritual growth. So get ready to explore and enjoy the show. Everybody. Good to have you guys here. If you're here with us for the first time, I see a lot of names that I'm familiar with, but if you are here for the first time, we'd love to just hear from you and give you a little special hello and welcome you here.
A little special something. Special. I'll let you kick things off today.
Yeah, man. What a weekend, huh?
Get after it. Yeah. That was special.
Yeah.
Special.
Special. Oh, man, I'm just like going through all the things that have happened just in the last like week or so. Pretty crazy. The day before I left, I got an injection of stem cells in my knee. Mm-hmm. That feels like it already happened ages ago, but that literally just happened. Then we traveled to Philly, had an incredible experience. You were traveling in New York and had a cool experience in the Hamptons before we got a chance to meet. So this is kind of like a lot of stuff that's happened. We've both had some crazy events happen. You with your wife, me with some random mean strangers, but all in all, it was just a lot of meat today.
A lot of meat on that bones. Yeah. It felt like a long week last week. I'm in a little bit of a process the last few days. Very tiny, but kind of off and on. I'm tired, and I could use some really good sleep. I'm like jet lagged. Last week I slept not at all when we were in Philly. I didn't go to bed till after midnight every single day we were there. Dude,
I passed out yesterday at like 9:30 p.m. and woke up at 8 p.m.
Yeah, the day I got home, I went to sleep at 7:15 p.m. I put the kids down. I'm like, I'm going with you. Like Jaden fell asleep after me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so we'll just kind of bounce around a bit and see where this goes. Shia, my son, for those unfamiliar, just celebrated his bar mitzvah. Now, some of you guys know I went on this epic South Africa trip. And that was basically his, like, instead of doing a party, we did that for 2.5 weeks. And so that was that portion. Fanny's side of the family, my family too, but Fanny's side of the family are Orthodox Jews. They're Chabad. Her brother's a rabbi and everyone's very religious. And so we also wanted to do something very meaningful for Shia from a actual bar mitzvah ceremony, not a party, but to do something like that. And so we were there this past weekend doing that. So it was amazing. Guy traveled from Cali to be with us. He was actually with my parents for a few days before. Parents obviously met us there. And then we had friends and tons of family. So just to put things in perspective, mine and Guy's family is actually very, very small. Like we have grandparents in Israel. We have an aunt and some cousins in Israel. We have one great uncle here, but besides that, we really don't have a family. Fanny's, on the other hand, is massive.
And multiplying like bunnies.
massive, right? Orthodox Jews, so they multiply. Her brother has 8 children, so just his family is a family of 10. Fanny's cousin, they have 5 children, so they're a family of 7. You know, like when we were trying to keep it small and do a Shabbat dinner, our small Shabbat dinner ended up being 43 people. Which is amazing because Guy and I came from like the complete opposite world, right? Like our family was always kind of very small, and this I put into this amazing, huge, warm, beautiful family world. And then so that was on Friday, and then Saturday we actually had like where Shai went up and read from the Torah and did all that. And then we had a lunch afterwards, and that we also tried to really keep intimate and small. And intimate and small ended up being just shy of 100 people. So it was quite the experience. But yes, it was a stunning event. I mean, I'll talk about what happened to kind of derail me for a few hours, but overall, I honestly, I still feel high from the whole thing. It just felt like Fanny and I were talking about it. I haven't felt that level of love and connection in the air, I think, since our wedding. It had that same kind of feel to it, where it was just this epic love, connection, celebration, joy. It was just this swirl that everyone came up to us and was so moved by the entire experience. I don't know if I told you this, but Rebbitzin, Rosie, the Rabbi Weinstein, came up to me and she said, listen, I knew this was going to be amazing, right? Like your family, the community, But she's like, I've never, in all the years that we've been doing this, experienced any bar bat mitzvah that was like this. She was like, it was just so beyond anything that I can experience. So yeah, I'm curious. I'll share more, but I'm just curious. What was your, because this is like, you haven't really delved really so much in that world. That's where I go home to, every like 2 or so months. Like to me, it's more familiar. To you. You really haven't been in that world almost at all.
I would say the last time I agree was like your wedding. I remember because we also did an event with Rosie and the rabbi.
Yep.
It was cool. I mean, I actually got a little bit sad that my family wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly because, I think a lot of us have the same values, but like, for my wife, like family values is widely important. And I thought it would have been really fun for the kids to like kind of see their extended family and suddenly realize they have like 30 cousins on the other coast. In my mind, like when I think about Fanny's family, I feel a little disconnected from that. But the truth is, in the way that families work, like these are my extended cousins also. Yes. Like here's the reality. I there's like 20 kids to remember their names. I didn't catch like any of them.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit out of my league, but I mean, what I like is that there's just a real presence of joy and love. And I think I agree with you. Like it's not usual for me. And I've known this about Moti and the rabbi for a long time, that they really exude the values that the religious aspects teach. And again, this might be a really small compartmentalized judgmental aspect of myself, where I don't normally see like that people's lives are improving because they're religious. Yeah. Like I don't see that their relationships are better, or that they're treating their children, anything like that. I generally see it, or maybe that's how it's portrayed more than the way that I see it. So maybe that's just misinterpretation on my part. And you guys can chime in on this too, because I'm certainly not wrong or right about what I'm saying here. Is that people usually use it to be righteous, or, they kind of use it like politics. It's like they stand on some kind of ledge, their belief systems and anything outside of that. And truth be told, like mostly with the Jewish community that I've gotten to be around off and on for different parts of my life, I've felt the same way with them also. It wasn't until I got into like more agnostic spiritual practices, where it wasn't some frame or acculturation like that I saw people really like opening up to different things and improve. And I have no issues at all with anybody who leans into religion or gets value from it. I mean, I think it can be an incredible tool. I think a lot of us are just lacking the qualitative stuff that kind of comes underneath. And the cool part for me was, you know, I don't think I've been in temple since I was 13 years old. Like I honestly can't remember the last time I sat in a temple. I think it was when I did what your son did this weekend. So it's been, I don't know, 28 years, 27 years since I've sat in one of those things. And what was fun for me, besides seeing your son be super supported and have like a lot of love present around him, I just felt like he was so safe and taken care of and really could feel the care for everyone around him, was that for me, I got to sit there in like this meditation and just feel the energy. Because for me, I think that's what was always missing also. When I was a kid, it was about content. Just like we talk about in our work. Everyone thinks it's for the content, like they're going to hear something that they've never heard before that's going to give them some transformation. At the end of the day, it's a story about a bunch of people walking through the desert, you know, like, and you can kind of get some of the energetic pieces. But what I have enjoyed for many years now, like even when I go to Europe or travel anywhere abroad, because there's so much history there, I go to churches all the time. And I sit and I meditate in them. I've sat in San Marcos and in Venice, and I've gone to be in Notre Dame and Paris before it burned. And, you know, like I've spent hours in those places meditating.
Remember we did that in Turkey, how beautiful the Blue Mosque was where we just sat there.
I love that stuff because for me, it's like it's an acknowledgement of the intention of that location, of the amount of people that have been in there, that have given prayers, of the healings that have occurred and all that kind of stuff. And so I love feeling the energy in there. And truth is, it's not like there's a lot of old temples like in America, you know, and if you go to Israel, where Elon and I were born, there is a thing called the Wailing Wall. If you guys don't know what that is, and it's I don't know how old that temple is, but it's like thousands of years old. And
thousands, yeah.
Yeah, and it's called the Western Wall. It's the Western Wall of this old temple that's been there. And this spot is very, very special. And there's also one of the most religious places for the Muslim world right there as well. And so right in this small footprint on the planet is this really, really special location. And it's special because even when I knew nothing of energy, I used to sit there and it like changes you. You don't feel the same. It kind of reminds me of the way, if you go to like a really old library, you know how everyone just walks into a library and everything just goes to this like dull hum, like everyone knows like, and so if you go to a library, there's also this kind of meditation that occurs for your mind. And it's interesting how books and environments can do that. And over there, it's like this wall puts out an energy.
Yeah.
It's like a vibration. And when you're in front of it, it like you get emotional. It's really, really palpable. Israel in general has that vibe. I've never been surprised that Israel has been such a up and down, you know, place on our planet for many thousands of years, because like the energy is palpable. Like you land in Israel, it's like it feels like the gravity is just different there. It's an interesting experience all in its own right. And so I kind of had that peek into that world through my energetic field. And I was reading the story because it was cool. At least the version of the book that they gave us had the Hebrew, the phonetical Hebrew, and then like the explanation from the rabbis underneath the stories. So I like zipped through a bunch of the stories down there, and I was like, okay. And again, I was kind of like feeling into those fields, and it was lovely. Like there was a real palpable feeling of love everywhere, and so that was honestly healing for me. You know, I had a crazy juxtaposition. Because just a few weeks before, like early August, I went to a wedding in Los Angeles, and I was also around the Jewish community, and like so much shit came up in my system, so much judgment came up around it, and I was just like, God damn, I'm like, this stuff is so, you know, this anger, this judgment is inside of me and so deep, and I really had to kind of like sit with that stuff, and it was just so wild because here we were just a few weeks later, same community, and I had such a different experience. So it was really nice. Like I came home to Manny, I told her, I'm like, I really enjoyed being in Temple, maybe for the first time in my entire life.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I'll just share quickly. I wanted to give a speech for my son's bar mitzvah. I wasn't really sure what to say. And I just basically was like, I don't even know where to start. So God, you know, send something my way. and the speech actually was shown to me in a dream in South Africa. I was literally awakened in the middle of the night, watching myself at that synagogue giving the speech, and just like all of it was being given to me. And so part of the overarching theme was how God has this mysterious way of always being in our lives, whether we're aware of it or not, and how the greatest challenges that we face, the greatest adversity, the greatest things, when at times where we think that we are alone, abandoned, whether you call it God, universe. I mean, it took me a long, long time through the spiritual work to be able to say the word God. But you can replace it with whatever works for you, right? And what I was shown in the dream is that in the moments that we abandoned God, he didn't abandon us, right?
Hey guys, can you let me know if I dropped off or Elon dropped off? I'm a little confused. Elon dropped off. Okay, thank you. Okay, now I see he's disappeared completely. Hopefully he comes back in. Maybe it was the webinar software. Got it. Thank you guys. All right, so I'll give him a minute to see if he can come back in. I will say this: Elon gave a masterful speech. I mean, it was really, really beautiful. I was blown away by how well he delivered it. He, in essence, told stories of just deep entrenched, like very difficult moments in his life, things that he had experienced, obviously things that we had experienced, and how it tied to bring him to these really beautiful places in his life. And had those things not happened, how he could see that some of his most treasured and cherished things in his life would not be available to him. And so, the essence of it was let go and let God, which I know is an easy thing to say. And another way to say that is really just about coming to a place of surrender in all our lives. And I don't know about you guys, surrender is an easy topic to discuss. Potentially one of the most challenging things to do, very easy to understand. Linguistically can be woefully challenging to actually let go truly and trust in the balance of things. My dad right now is in a situation where he's lost his job, and he's dealing with it better than I've ever seen him deal with it before, but I can see how he's being tested over and over again right now with certain expectations. And in our level 2 program, we have this distinction that I won't explain too much over here, but we could talk about excess potential. And excess potential is kind of this universal principle of harmonics and balance in the universe, of things harmonizing and balancing in the universe, right? And if you look everywhere, whether it's nature or society or the universe, you can kind of notice that things are being held in this kind of balance. There are moments where they drop out of balance, but there's this tendency to bring it back into balance. There's a amazing movie documentary that if you haven't seen it, I highly urge you to see it. I think it's called, it's either Little Big Farm or Big Little Farm. I always forget which way it is. And it's this couple that buys 200 or so acres of land here in California. In fact, my sister-in-law has actually driven up to that farm a handful of times to actually go get lessons from them on homesteading. I'll let you pop back in here in a second, bro. And the reason I bring up this movie is because this couple they moved from the Bay Area, from San Francisco. They buy this land, and they know nothing about farming. Like, they are as green as it gets, but they're very available for learning. And they end up hiring this incredible regenerative farming kind of expert, right? And he kind of guides them on this path. The Biggest Little Farm, thank you. And what's really cool about it is the challenges that they face. And some of them are extremely difficult. But every time a challenge comes, it's like, for example, they're growing all these fruit trees. And then there's like this swarm of snails come and are just like eating all the produce, and they can't sell the produce, and it's a big challenge. And then they solved that by bringing a lot of ducks on the property, you know, and then like every time they solve one problem, it creates a disbalance elsewhere. But nature has this way of finding balance. And so the guy who is consulting them on the farm tells them that it's going to take 7 years before this farm is like really up and running. Like that's the expectation. And it's wild because within a 7-year period, it's like, you know, this thing comes and then the predator comes, and then they have to do this and they have to do that. And like this animal comes and then this changes. But over a 7-year period, the ecosystem balances itself out. And this farm today is like a prized jewel in California. Like if you guys ever get to go see just an image of this farm or go and watch this movie, and it's like an hour and change. It's so good. It's a very emotional movie because of their connection with the land, the connection with the animals. But like at its core, what the movie shows is how things come to balance, both metaphorically on the farm and as well in their lives. And I love that movie. It's always stuck with me, and it's given me this reminder that like our life is the same. It requires time and attention. It requires cultivation. It requires resource like you would in the soil. And you just got to be patient and realize that these things just take time. And the other, you know, interesting part is that this thing around 7 years, because when people talk about mastery, Elon and I often talk about this book called Robert Greene's book, Mastery, which is a must read. I think it's the top 5 books ever written. And if you haven't read it, it's worthwhile because it helps you depart from a lot of very negative conversations about what it means to be successful in this world and how did people form into genius and all these different kinds of things. And again, there's this concept of mastery in 10,000 hours. And the ironic part is when you take 10,000 hours of study, it breaks down to about 7 years worth of work. So there's kind of this numerological principle of 7 years. And what I have found, and again, wow, this is kind of just hitting me now. Like I have found people in business and entrepreneurs, like 7 years to gain traction. You know, it's like this number just really rotates itself. It's very interesting. And Elon and I have been in business now for 13 years, or, you know, just a little bit north of 13 years here. And when we first started the business in 2013, 2011, we transitioned really hard in 2016. Like we basically stopped all of the operations we were doing. And at that time, we had a pretty big following in the networks that we were in. And our assumption, wrong assumption, was that we were going to like snap our fingers, pivot our company, and all these people would follow us. But the audience that we had built was a really different audience than the audience that we wanted to attract. We didn't know what our offerings were. We didn't know how to market properly. Like there was this whole thing. And so we had this thing that we were going to like pivot, snap our fingers.
6 months later.
Exactly. 6 months later, have this like kind of new business up and running. And because of that, we invested really heavily up front. We paid this copywriter, creator. I mean, I think we spent like $50,000 to like rebrand our company, something like that, to have a new website built. And it was a really cool process actually, but it was extremely expensive. And all those expectations were not met, like not even a little bit, because it wasn't a pivoting of our company. What we didn't recognize at the time, could not have known, is that we were starting our business from scratch. Like it was like day one protocol. And we dug ourselves in a financial hole because we made a ton of huge investments up front, thinking we're just going to move this machine, push it out. I'm talking about like Elon and I, you know, ran a number of events in the year 2016 that we had spent north of six figures just to put together. These were insane events. Like even today, I cannot believe that these two idiots put those events together, right? Like we rented these two massive mansions side by side with each other in La Jolla and ran an 8-day event out of 2 different mansions. Again, me and Elon had never run a live event before. We didn't know what we were doing. And our now that I'm thinking about it, is the whole reason we were going to do that is we were going to finance this super high-end mastermind experience. But for whatever reason, I don't know why we made these decisions. These are completely erratic decisions. Is we gave ourselves 3 weeks to put this entire event together from start to finish. Like the new year kicked in, and by like the beginning of February, we were going to hold this event. And so we were going to charge like $14,000 for these unbelievable experiences here in San Diego. People were going to go fly airplanes. We were going to have this like nighttime cruise near Coronado. Like when we paid for all this stuff to happen without selling one ticket, never sold a ticket. Elon and I individually reached out to 75 different people that we knew, entrepreneurs in our network, made them each private videos, built all the landing pages, all the marketing, put these events together, hired all the people, again, without selling a damn ticket. And I think the event cost us like $110,000 before we made $1 back. We lost money on that event for sure, right? But it was kind of like our coming out party of like, hey, we're transitioning. And so we had like 40 people flying from all over the world, but this mastermind experience, I was supposed to pay for all of it. Not one person said yes. Not one. Because it's a bunch of busy entrepreneurs. We gave them no head start. Like everyone wanted to come, but they're like, hey, I just can't fit into my schedule. And so it was this kind of like scary experience. And again, we just learned to pivot. Like we turned it into a big Super Bowl party with 75 people came and we did all this cool stuff. But here's my point is like the people who developed that idea were people who were sure of what their future was going to hold. And the future did not work out like that at all. And so that was 2016. We're now in 2014. So it was like right at the beginning of 2017. And Elon and I just hit our 7th year, kind of like operating the way that we are today. And I could tell you, it's just over this last maybe 6 months, 8 months, really the year, where we started getting a lot of traction in our company. And so I bring that forward because there's a lot of impatience in how we approach ourselves, how we approach healing. Like same thing for us with our energetic work. Like we've just been doing this north of 8 years, something like that. I started in 2016, April. No, my apologies. I started in 2017 in April. So I just basically passed my 7th year. And the truth is, I just started feeling like I have competency, like true mastery competency in this work as of late. And so there's this theme over and over again, right? And a lot of you guys have been around this work for a few months or a year, and you're still dealing with some challenges, things that are looping around and again and again. And I just want to kind of put this forward, like good things can happen to you quickly. Bad things can happen to you quickly. But to get mastery in anything, to have stability in some area of life, again, there's this kind of principle of balance. And we do a lot of erratic things with our energy that creates disbalance. And so I'm sure Elon wanted to share this too, but I'll just say this, like we came off of a high this weekend, right? When you're around a lot of people, getting connection, people are sharing you with love. It's like there's this high, and we can get into the details of it, but I'll just kind of put this out there. And right as we got home, like all these heavy challenges began, right as the event ended, one for Elon, one for me, one for my dad. Just like these like kind of hammers came down on different areas of our life simultaneously. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but when Will Smith won the Academy Award a few years ago, and before that he had slapped Chris Rock on stage, when they came back from the break and they finally gave him the award and he was on stage giving his speech, whether you agree with what happened or not. I mean, obviously violence I don't agree with, but you know, whether you think he got caught in the moment or whether you think he's apprehensible, whatever your situation is on that. I remember he said that Denzel Washington walked up to him and he said basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, but in your greatest moment, like when you reach your peak, the devil will come and get you. Right. So I think that's from like the Bible or something like that. But it kind of works on the same principle. It's when the energy goes super high, just like when somebody takes drugs or, you know, heroin, it gets super high, something has to collect on that debt. Something has to collect on that energy. Something has to bring that energy back down to its balance point. And so you'll often see that you can ride these waves and get pretty high for a while, and then like something comes. I think the trick here is, trick in quotes over here, is that it's not about being upset that that ride might be over. It's about not getting too pulled in to the fact that it is. Because we get attached both ways, right? When you are in a really tough spot, you're stuck in the worry, you're stuck in the blaming, the shaming, the guilt, and all the things that people do to themselves, and they keep digging that hole down, because they're attached to some vision of life that they've never even experienced before most of the time, don't even really know what they're looking for. And they have all these ideas and contentions about how that life is going to arise. Just like Elon and I had these ideas about our business taking off immediately. And we've just spent, 6 and 7 years of loving what we're doing, but really going through a lot of very difficult challenges in our business and our financial life and all this kind of stuff. And then it's the same thing when you get on these highs, you get attached to that it's going to stick around. And kind of what we need to learn is how to have healthy responses to things. Whether you're feeling really down and out, is it healthy to constantly be in the worry? Is it healthy to constantly be berating yourself to do that? Of course not. And in the same token, if something amazing happens and you want to celebrate, there's a way to celebrate in a healthy way where you can acknowledge and feel this like beauty that's entered your life. And at the same time, in the same way, if you get attached to staying there, I can already tell you it's coming to get you. Because this is something I learned the hard way, is that hope can be your ego can use hope as a backdoor for disappointment. It's how it gets you. Great things happen. You start getting real hopeful, and there's nothing wrong with hope, but you start creating all this excess energy around it because you think, everything has changed now. And I can tell you from personal experience, I've been there so many times where great things started happening. I was like, this is it. Elon and I have had a running joke for 13 years in our company. Like a good thing happens, and we just joke like, oh, this is the thing. This is the thing. Like, this is the thing that finally gets us there or puts us out there or makes the company grow or lets a lot of people know about us. And no matter how many times we've done that, it's never been the thing. Because every time we think it's a thing, we're like, what happens soon thereafter is something not that happens, and we get extremely disappointed. So I've kind of learned, like, I will celebrate the good, but then I'm like, I will acknowledge always wonderful things that enter my life and show appreciation for it. But in the next moment, it's like, okay, now that moment is gone. Back to the empty space, back to being in the spacious awareness and the just allowing for things to emerge and be created from God, because your ego wants to hook into everything. It wants to hook into the negativity. It wants to hook into the positivity, and it wants to start taking control of it. Like it created it when it didn't. It did no such thing. And so it's like this subtle way that we can get tricked and put into these kind of negative situations. And it really doesn't matter which side of the equation you get on, the ego will try to take advantage of it. And then this rebalancing will happen, and you'll have to, it's almost like hitting the reset button on that lesson again and going, all right, here we go again. Like you didn't learn it that time. You still got hooked in. And so that's kind of what I've learned from this time and time again is like, don't get too down on yourself, but don't get too up on yourself either. And if you can kind of ride that more moderate place, I see that genuinely more wonderful things can enter your life. But don't mistake yourself as suddenly being a lucky rabbit's foot, or like just like, oh, I finally figured it out, because it's like that's the ego stepping in. Give it back again and come back to the empty space and give more opportunities for things in your life to unfold, and just be appreciative of whatever experience you're having, because you're having an experience. And at the end of the day, that's something that we can appreciate, all of us. Yeah.
Are you feeling inspired by these podcasts? Is this approach striking a chord with you? Imagine taking this journey even further with personal coaching from Guy and I, right from your own home on Zoom. Join us at our next live event. They happen quarterly. It's an accessible, cost-effective way to dive deep into these transformative practices, not just theoretically, but experientially. Attendees often share that they've experienced unprecedented levels of peace, support, forgiveness, and awareness. Remember, healing isn't just a mental exercise. It must be felt and released through the body. So here's a special gift just for you, our valued listener. Visit intuitivemind.live and use the coupon code OLDSOUL to receive 25% off your ticket. The Intuitive Mind event is unlike any other. So impactful that many participants return multiple times, some as many as 10, 12, even 15 times. Plus, once you register, we'll immediately send you a recording of a previous event so that you can start practicing right away. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to intuitivemind.live, secure your spot for our next live event using the coupon code OLDSOUL, and start your transformative journey today. Now, back to the show. Yeah, I love that. And I think what we've changed is nothing is, and this is true for our personal development thing too. Think about when we started to do personal development as well. It was like, this course is going to be the thing, and this thing, the thing. I think today we're just like, it's a thing amongst many, 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 many others things. You know, there is no the thing. And I think if anyone of our students, I see a bunch of you guys are here, you know, like we're big proponents of, there is no thing. It's just a string of things that you keep doing, and eventually it just creates this movement and momentum. And I'm sorry I got cut off kind of mid-flow, and so I want it because it really ties into what Guy is talking about also, of like allowing things to just develop and move and shift without getting so in the weeds with them. So one of the things that I was shown in this dream was this higher view and all these interconnected, it almost looked like it was like a tapestry / spider web, where I could see all these strands connecting from this event to this event to this event to this event. And only given enough time could I see this like masterful orchestration that God had to get me here today. And so one of the big things that I shared was that when I was 12 years old and practicing for my bar mitzvah, which was basically 30 years before Shia had his experience, I had a really terrible experience with this one rabbi where I don't want to get into the whole thing of it, but basically he like cheated and lied to me. And even at 12 years old, and even if this guy's older, I always, as a person, I had like this innate bullshit meter. Like I knew when people were lying. It just was one of those things. And so I knew this guy was lying. I knew he was trying to pull one over on me. And this is a rabbi, like the head of the synagogue, who's supposed to be holy and, you know, all this stuff. And he took advantage of a 12-year-old. Not in the way that priests take advantage of 12-year-olds, but a different, you know, like a different taken advantage of, to the point. And I know this now to be true because this guy saw my parents like decades after and literally came up to them and apologized because he fucking knew that he did something wrong, whatever. And he had to live with that. In any event, that's what broke my, that was my break from religion. Well, Judaism, then that parlayed into basically all organized religion. And worst of all, which I didn't know at the time, it broke my relationship to God. And so I lived with that for a very, very, very long time. And then slowly, Guy and I started to do personal development work. We ended up taking this program. And I remember it was roughly 2003, 4. No, it was probably 4, 5, something like that. And we were doing this program, and it hit me that the work that we were doing wasn't just personal development. It was actually spiritual. And I started to kind of see God. And then a friend of mine came through and he gave me all these books. And I really started to see spirituality in what it is that I was actually studying. And then I met Fanny. And Fanny's whole family, even when I met her, even though she was not Orthodox, Fanny's whole family was. And so I could see this divine orchestration of like, of all the women in all the world, my soulmate has a super Orthodox religious family. And I would walk into these events like Shabbat dinners and high holy holidays and things like that, and have to sit in synagogue, and all this stuff, all that old hate, judgment, resentment, everything would just bubble to the surface. And I knew it had nothing to do with them, right? Like I'd done enough work on myself to realize this has nothing to do with them. The judgments weren't on them. The judgments weren't on, it was just all my old stuff. And I could, in this dream, what I got to see, it was this moment where God literally came and almost whispered in my ear, was like, it's time to heal and let this go. And it didn't happen like this. I would love to tell you that I fell in love with this family and all this stuff melted away. It did not. It was a ongoing process of sitting there and being super uncomfortable, then like letting that thing move through, and then the next one and the next. And it was just this unfolding thing. And what Guy was pointing to earlier, it's like I had met through my brother, who's now a rabbi, and the other rabbi who married my wife and I. And like I started to see beings that chose the path of Judaism in this particular case and received wisdom and light and improved as humans, improved as fathers, improved as mothers, improved in their relationship, and then just began to shine this beautiful light on the entire world. And it was those beings that their light that they were receiving and enhancing through the practices that they were doing with religion that began to melt parts that were frozen and broken inside of me. And so I was talking about in my speech, I was telling Shia that, it took, 15 years of hate, judgment, disconnection from God and all that stuff. It took 15 years for this cycle to shift and for me to find ultimately gratitude and love for the rabbi that hurt me, and gratitude and love for even the hate, judgment, resentment, disconnection that I felt, because we talk about this all the time. Contrast is the ultimate teacher. And I wouldn't have known the level of connection, acceptance, and love that was now available to me in my heart and in my body if I hadn't also experienced all that stuff previously. And through this process, I could see how patient God was. And I could start to see that given enough time, we too, even in human form, can begin to see the unfolding of all of this stuff. Now, at the actual bar mitzvah, so Shia was working with his uncle, Fanny's brother, for the past year, getting ready for this bar mitzvah. So it's like, just put this in perspective, right? The guy that I was working with screwed me over and had me complete disconnect from religion and God and all that stuff. Shia got to work with his uncle, right? To deepen not only his connection to, and he's doing it with someone who, like, my brother Moti is he wasn't religious growing up. Like, he found and chose this path. To him, he lives, breathes this. He is such a beautiful being. And that's who Shia got to work with. So not only did they get to deepen their relationship between the two of them, but like, that's the man who was helping Shia learn and grow and go through this process, right? So then Shia gets up on the bima and he's reading the Torah, and it's the rabbi who married me is helping him through this process, his uncle, right? And I'm standing next to Shia as he's reading these words and going through the process, and I just begin to just cry. And as I check in what's happening, I could feel this thread. It was like a little thread that just kind of moved through and exited. I could feel it kind of like moving through the right side of my body and just disappear, like this little flash. And all of a sudden, I just feel peace just wash over me. I am just it was like light, peace, love, just wash over me. And what I realized was that Shia was the final stitch in my healing process. It took 30 years for the final stitch to be sewn in this healing process, because Shia got to experience his bar mitzvah the way, I don't know if there's a right way or wrong way, but to me, it felt like he got to experience his bar mitzvah the way that it is meant to be experienced. He was surrounded by support, by love. He felt connection. There was pride. There was joy. There was all of these things that I had none of when I did mine. I was just going through the motions to get this fucking thing done. And the second we walked out the door, I was like, I'm fucking done with all of this. So there was no joy, no excitement, no love, no connection present for me 30 years prior. And it was almost like he was doing it for me as well to complete that beautiful cycle. And I sat there and I was like, man, God is so patient. And the orchestration of all of this stuff that needed to happen for me to have this powerful experience, that's how long of a window it needed to complete. And what I was left with is, look, there are things right now in your life that feel unsurmountable, maybe, that feel like you will never get through it. And ultimately, what I want to remind all of you is this: God, whether you believe or not, whether you see or not, is still walking beside you step by step. You're not on your own. And as much as you want to believe that you are, because you look around and that's the proof that you can find, I'm telling you, given enough time and enough surrendering to the trust and faith that you are held and supported, it will all always, always, always work out in your favor. And that's ultimately what I shared with Shai, because there's like 3 other events that I shared that were just incredible when I looked back at how these seeming tragedies turned into unbelievable blessings. So I leave this weekend and I'm telling you, like chills, just a vibratory aliveness filled with love and ecstasy. It felt so good that I felt like when I was walking, you ever been so lit that like when you're walking, it feels like the sea is parting in your way? You're like, I'm walking through the airport and people are just literally like moving out of the way. People are smiling at me. The Uber driver that took us there is just this amazing being. We're sitting in this brand new car. We get to the airport, one table, we get the table. We have this amazing waitress. Like everything is just like, oh, this feels so good, right? We get to our gate 25 minutes before our flight time. And as I'm walking through, I see the woman like starting to close the gate door. And I'm like, hey, hold on. And this woman literally looks at me and goes, flight's closed. I didn't even know this, but meanwhile, Fanny and Aaliyah had been sitting there for the last 3 minutes, just like waiting for us, but weren't even sure if people had even started to board or anything like that. Regardless, we get into this. I cannot even begin to express to you the level of inhumaneness that we experienced by not only this woman, but then her supervisor. And I'm sitting there and it's taking everything in my power not to hit this person. And I feel these waves of like, you know, when you want to just choke somebody, I feel it. I didn't say a single nasty thing to her. I didn't yell at her. I didn't even curse, which for me is like insane. But every time I felt this wave of like, I want to kill this human, I just moved away, looked out the window, found my feet and breathed. And then I would come back. And by the way, this happened like 5-6 times, right? Because there's just a lot. I don't remember the last time, if ever, I was so just treated like not human. I don't even know how else to describe it. We had random strangers, 2 complete random strangers who watched this entire interaction come and speak to the supervisor on our behalf who had watched and going like, what are you doing to this family? Like, we saw the whole thing unfold. There's absolutely no reason for this to be happening. And they were so dismissive. They're like, we don't care about your opinion. You have nothing to do with this. Go back to your seat. And we're just sitting like, what? I mean, the level of it was just staggering. And then we watched the same woman do this to another couple 30, 40 minutes later. It was unprecedented. So we are all leaving this insane weekend filled with love and light and just hit so hard with this wave of anger and nastiness. I don't even know how else to describe, just nastiness. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, wow, everything I spoke about, everything in my speech about contrast and surrendering and God always being there. I'm like, this is it. And in Judaism, interestingly enough, when you get married, one of the things that we do at the end of right before they pronounce your husband and wife, the man breaks a glass. So you take a glass that you were drinking the wine out of and you shatter it. Now, there's many, many explanations as to why that is. The one that our rabbi explained to me was that even in the moments of sheer joy and bliss and love, that moment is to remind us of all the pain, the hurt, the broken things that have happened in the past. So like even in the moment where we're so high, to still remember the things that have happened before. And I'm sitting there and I'm going like, God, I can't understand why we needed to end this insanely beautiful, like once in a lifetime experience like this. And I'm sitting on the plane, guys, and I am doing all the practices that we teach you. I'm literally feeling as a volcano of rage is wanting to come up. And to help my rage, the seat in front of me, a father and his son are watching a movie on an iPad with no headphones on full blast. And the people to the right of me have two kids, and one is like a baby, and he is literally crying for the entire 2.5 hours, like wailing uncontrollably for 2.5 hours. And I'm sitting there and I'm just going, okay, find my feet, find ground, find source, surrender, God, like, and the amount of waves that moved through me and the contrast of them was unlike anything I've experienced. It was literally going from, I want to kill somebody, to love and bliss, because that's, and it was just these moments of time of just like standing on the beam with my son and feeling this amazing love. And then all of a sudden this like woman just is slamming the door and back to this amazing experience at the Shabbat dinner, and then noticing this kid crying. It was just this amazing thing. I came home. I was still very jacked up. We had to fly. It was crazy. We had to fly to a different airport and get Uber to our car. We ended up not getting home till almost midnight. I get home. I'm exhausted because this whole energetic thing, but I can't fall asleep for the next 2 hours because all this stuff is still moving through me. I woke up the next day and I was like, I am not willing to let these women that did that thing take this weekend and the power of it away from me. I'm not giving them that power. And I did practices and I did minis and I sat with people and I'm, no joke, like moved all this through my body. By the way, we got the CEO's email for Frontier Airlines, as well as the head of client relations. We've already been on the phone with them. They're already like looking into the employees. We'll be taken care of. I have no doubt of that. So all this stuff is already in motion, right? But for me, I was like, I am surrendering and letting this all go. And I'm clear that maybe in a year or a month or 10 years, I don't even know, this moment will still become clearer to me as to why that needed to happen. And maybe it won't. I'm not attached to it, but it's just like surrendering to the experience of it all. And I'm telling you guys, this work fucking works. Because put me there even 2-3 years ago, and I think my wife would have had to hold me back from hitting this woman. Like, to feel that much rage in your system that you have been wronged so badly for not doing anything. Like, I'm sure there are times that I've hurt someone and like I deserved the rage that was coming at me, but to have done nothing to this person and receive that much rage and to feel that intensity, I'm telling you, it is only because we continue to do these practices that I allowed my system to have enough space and enough stability and ground to feel the intensity of this thing and let it move through. And if it wasn't for this work, I would have done something very, very stupid in that moment, like very stupid. And I would have felt justified in doing it. So I'm so grateful for all the moments, literally all the moments it has taken for me to get to this level of allowing, this level of surrendering, and these eyes to be able to see and witness all of it as it's happening. Because even if I don't know why, and even if I can't see the end game, and even I still trust that it is all happening for me and through me and in my favor. And so my hope is that in some of what I said, this is what you hear. Think of the thing right now that is upsetting you, feel stuck, immovable. There's hate, there's doubt, there's whatever in your system. And just know that given enough time and enough surrender and trust, I promise you, in a year or 5 or 10, you will look back at this moment with gratitude for everything that took place because of what it provided you. Stop fighting the things that are arising in your life. See if you can shift into the felt sense of it and just notice the wave. Notice the wave of disappointment. Notice the wave of anger. Notice the wave of resentment. Notice the wave of judgment. But just don't let it be who you are. You are not that. You are much, much bigger than that. And that part gets its time. Like it really does. The rage, if I tried to stop it, that would have been a terrible idea. I literally let it flow through every cell of my body. I let it move through my feet, out my head, out my arms. I was shaking. I was fake screaming. I did all the things that we teach you. And it moved through. And I woke up the next day. There's like a 5% resonance that I still need to work through, but it's done. So just remember, no matter what you guys are going through, it's all here to help you strengthen your nervous system, to help you learn and deepen the practices. It's not just happening for shits and giggles. It really is part of your preparation for whatever it is that you're moving towards.
Yeah. And just because Stacy pointed to it, I think she said, I think she meant yes to the negative thoughts then. And here's the thing. You don't really have a choice. I mean, you always have choice. You have free choice. You can have a negative thought and try to manipulate it. Trying to manipulate negative thoughts from going away doesn't make them go away. They'll come back later. Even for a moment, you can distract yourself or do something else. That's what most of us do. We distract, we avoid, we do our addictions, we do different things. We try to get our mind off of it. Maybe in the short term, you get a little reprieve. But after that, the reality is still the reality. Your body, your emotions, your mind, it's going to do what it do. this work is, again, we always say this, it's not about making yourself feel good. It's about getting better at the felt sense. It's another way of saying, be aware of what's here right now. It's the only thing that you have is what's here right now. You know, what Elon was displaying and summarizing really beautifully is like he felt an intense amount of anger, but that thing that used to be there that tried to change it or make it go away, now there's just a witnessing anger arising. And I don't know anybody in that situation that wouldn't be feeling some level of hostility or anger towards a person that you feel is doing you wrong, right? And so notice that the story he's telling you allowed for that energy to move through his system by being with it fully in the experience. I totally understand trying to change it. And I could tell you for 21 plus years of work between Elon and myself now each,
we tried.
It doesn't work. This unfoldment, this fear, this scarcity, this whatever is there, that's what's there. That's what there is to be with. If you want freedom from that thing, that's the illusion, is that you're going to get rid of it instead of learning how to be with it. It's the same illusion all over the planet when we try to fight on politics or religion or anything else, trying to get rid of the other party in some way through righteousness. Has that ever worked? It just pervasively goes on. We want to learn how to be intimately and compassionately able to be with what's arising, whether that's a person or politics or changes on our planet or whatever else. Otherwise, there's just suffering in your future.
Yeah.
That's it. Like there could only be one outcome from not being with what's here right now is more suffering. So the practices, you know, started this whole thing with 7 years, is it may take you 7 years to sit with the stuff that's arising within you till that aspect of yourself surrenders to that experience fully. And you'll probably hit layers of it and let little bits go here and there along the way, but nothing is one thing. An emotion you have is not there because one thing happened to you. It's connected to so many different things.
Yeah.
Right? We're very complex. We're having emotions and thoughts and sensations and multidimensionality experiences all simultaneously. Like, we don't understand how memory works. We don't know how trillions of brain cells in your mind are put together. It's very complex, right? So it's like, you know, spirituality 101 is be with what's here right now and surrender to it. And surrendering simply means be the objective witness of what's occurring. And we always talk about honoring what's arising. Be in awe, even inspired by what's arising within you. And if what's arising within you is anger, you might think, well, how do I be with anger? Well, you got to be like, look at what I can do. Look at what the system can do. It can generate all this energy that we call anger. That's kind of amusing, isn't it? That it can do that when you're feeling threatened. It took me a long, long time to be with understanding that finding the seat of awareness is not something you understand. It's not you're not gonna find it by oh, I got that insight, now I know where the seat of awareness is. It's a direct experience that we point to often. And if you want to really train yourself in this experience, I put it up there, but I'll mention it. Intuitive Mind, the next 2-day event is coming up here in mid-September, September 14th and 15th. For the next 2 days, you have an opportunity to get half off your ticket. So if you haven't purchased your ticket yet, go to intuitivemind.live. You have a coupon code HALF50, half HALF50. Save yourself 50% on buying your ticket. And that's what that 2-day work is about. It's about locating through your direct experience that seat of awareness. And then once you've located that, how is it, and noticing what's the impact on you of locating that awareness, and what are the practices then that naturally lend themselves to more healing, more balance, more homeostasis, more openness in your life so that you can be with what's arising. Here's the reality. No one can change your circumstances but you, right? Like, changing circumstances require action. And if what's changing the circumstance is the same energy that you had before, I could tell you from personal experience, you will loop and create the same challenges in your life over and over again. We talk about this all the time. Reality is an organic hologram that is mirroring you. It's like when you put two mirrors side by side and they just bounce their image back and forth into infinity. That's exactly what reality is. It's you are a mirror and you're just reflecting yourself back into that mirror over and over and over again. So it's not about trying to manipulate and change the mirror. The mirror is the mirror. There is no manipulating that mirror. But what it's broadcasting back to you is mimicking your energetic signal, your output. And what this work is about learning how to shift that frequency output so that what you're seeing in the mirror changes, because you're always seeing yourself. Aspects of yourself you've turned away from, aspects of yourself that you don't want to be with. Notice how they just keep showing up. That's the nature of how this reality works. It will keep showing you what you get to learn. And for Elon, I'm sure, like in some way, being with that experience is kind of an upgrade. It's not the experience that he wanted, but to see yourself in a way that hey, I always do this thing, and then there's always an impact, and there's a way that I feel, and I'm being, mean to my family or whatever it might be, and there's a way that it's been, and suddenly it's not that way, and it can move through you. Like it's massive, right? That's the thing about this work. The changes are subtle, but the impact is massive. And oftentimes, because the changes are subtle, you miss them until you're in a situation where that part of you comes forward. I don't want to say tested, because we use that word, kind of frivolously in language, but it's like you're being tested in that moment, not by God and not to prove yourself worthy of anything, but it's to see, like, am I going to respond that same way that's ultimately let this reality reflect this kind of thing?
I got to bounce.
Yeah, no worries. And this is the opportunity that we all have in these moments, is to really learn how to be with what's arising and really appreciate that it's flowing through us, that it's part of our lived experience. And if you want out of the trap that you're in, if you want to stop suffering, the work is really learning how to be with what's arising. It's not about changing what's arising. Okay? So hopefully those pointers help you. We love you very much. Thank you for being here this week. Please go grab your ticket if you don't already have one. It's an awesome deal. Amazing weekend. Love being on those weekends with you guys. We probably have the biggest event already that we're ever going to have so far in the last 4 years that we put these events on. We have about 200 people or so registered for it. We'd love to have as many there as possible. It just makes the energy that much more beautiful to be with. So love you guys, and we'll see you here next week. Take care.
Thank you, dear one, for choosing to share a bit of your day with us. We value you greatly. And as a way to give back and help you to deepen these practices, we want to invite you to join our incredible community on Facebook. You can do so easily by going to joinoldsouls.com and ask for an invite. This is our private community where old souls and seekers are able to grow and share their journey with others. We hold exclusive weekly live streams, we answer your personal questions, and offer valuable insights that we won't be able to share here on the podcast. So again, just head to joinoldsouls.com and grab your invite today. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, please head to iTunes and leave us a review. It's the only way other people can find this show. So if it's making a difference in your life, please share the love. Until we meet again, have an amazing week, dear one.